Okay, we'll put this to page width, and here we go. So grade 7, hopefully you've made it to 7-3 here, and these questions weren't too tough for you. If they were, these videos are going to be on YouTube anyway, so you can correct your work this weekend. The first question says 12/5 is more than 3. So what we have here is an improper fraction, 12/5. And what you have to do is you have to change it to a mixed fraction. So if I was to draw 12/5, the first thing I would draw is draw 5/5, which is 1. If I drew another 5/5, that would be 10/5. And 10/5 is really the same thing as 2, right? If 12/5 was there, it would really be the same as 2 and 2/5, which means that 12/5 is the same thing as 2 and 2/5. And is that more than 3? No, it's not. So the answer is false. It's less than 3. Question 2 says 2 3/4 is equal to 1 7/4. Well, let's check. So really, 1 7/4 is kind of a weird one because it's a mixed fraction and an improper fraction combined, and we've never seen it. But we know that 4/4 is equal to 1, and 7/4 is equal to 1 3/4. So if I had 1 7/4, I'd really have 2 3/4, which is the same thing, which makes this answer actually true. Question 3, the sum of 1 1/2 and 2 3/4 will be more than 4.1. Oh my God, Mr. McDonald, what are you trying to do to these kids? Well, let's look. So sum means addition. So 1 1/2 plus 2 3/4. What I'm going to do first is add the whole number. So 1 plus 2 is 3. And then I'm going to take my fractional parts, 1/2 plus 3/4, and add them together. Now that's an easy question. I'm going to use a common denominator, 4. I get 2/4 plus 3/4, and my answer is 5/4, which will equal 5/4, which is 1 1/4. Now don't forget, we've already had these ones as well, which is 3. So when I take that 3 and bring it back over here, this 3 and 1 is going to become 4. So your answer is 4 1/4. But the question says, will be more than 4 1/10, right? And if I think about what 4 1/10 is, that's, actually, you know what? I'm going to change this to a decimal instead. That's even easier. 4 1/4 would be 4.25. And 4.25 is greater than 4.1, so therefore your answer is true. Question 4, 2 3/5 is how many fifths? Well, remember, this 2, if I was to draw 5/5, exact same before, that's 1. If I was to draw 2 chocolate bars cut into fifths, that would be 10/5. So 2 is actually the same thing as 10/5, which means I have another 3/5 added on to that, which means I have 13/5, which is your answer. 2 3/5 is the same thing as 13/5. Question 5, 16/3 is equal to 5 1/3, because 5 would be 15/3 is equal to 5. And if I have 16/3, I have an additional third. Question 6 is the sum of 1 1/3 and 1 1/2. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my whole numbers, 1 and 1. I'm going to add my fractional parts, 1/3 and 1/2. This is going to be 2. This one needs common denominators for me to add it. So 2/6 and 3/6 equals 5/6. Take that 2 down here. Oh, I can't do that. So 2 and 5/6 is your answer. Question 7, 2 3/5. Oops, yep, 3/5 plus 1 7/10. I'm going to go 2 plus 1 plus 3/5 plus 7/10. This is going to be 4. Over here I get 7/10, and 3/5 is equivalent to 6/10, which means it's 13/10, which is improper. As a mixed fraction, it's 1 3/10. Add 1 3/10 to 4, and I get my answer, which is 5 3/10. Question 8 says 3 3/4 plus, our takeaway, 1 5/8. When you have this type of question, it's sometimes easier with takeaways of mixed fractions. The easiest thing to do is to simply change them both into improper fractions. So what I'm going to do here is when I'm subtracting mixed fractions, I don't like to ever subtract. I like to change them to mixed. So 3 3/4 is 15 quarters. Take away 13 eighths. And when I rewrite this mixed fraction question as improper, it becomes a lot easier to do. Because now I can just find my common denominator of 8. This one doesn't change. This one will become 30. 30 take away 13 over 8 will be 17 eighths is my answer. But that's improper, so I want to change it back, which is 2 1/8. Press pause if you have to and take a look at that and write it down. It's not so hard, is it? Question 9, same type of thing. We're taking away mixed fractions. So the first thing I want to do is change these to improper. 4 1/3 is 13 thirds. 2 3/8 is really 19 eighths. My common denominator for both is going to be 24. That's where it's a little bit complicated. Here I have to be able to multiply 13 by 8, which is 104. I have to be able to multiply 19 by 3, which is 57. And I think that's 57, isn't it? 30, 27, 57. Oh, yeah, that's right. And when I subtract those two, I got 104 take away 57, which is over 24, which will be 47 over 24, which is 1, so close to 2, and 23 24ths. Again, press pause here if you need to and copy that down. And the last question, question 10, is 1 3/5 take away 7 eighths. So again, I'm taking away, so I'm going to change this to 8 fifths, take away 7 eighths. Common denominator we can use here is 40. 64 40ths is equivalent to 8 fifths. And 35 40ths is equivalent to 7 eighths. 64 take away 35 over 40 will give you 29 over 40, which is lowest terms because 29 is a prime number and 40 does not have 29 as a factor.